You're listening to Permission To, the podcast where we dive into the science and soul of owning your worthiness as a perfectly imperfect human being. I'm your host, Sam Dew, psychotherapist, positive psychology coach, mama to a beautiful 5-year-old Amelie, and passionate advocate for living an inspired life. My aim is to show you that you have full permission to own your worthiness so that you can embrace your true nature and begin walking boldly toward your dreams. Let's dive in. Hi beauties, welcome to another episode of Permission To. I know we've had a couple of weeks unexpected break. My little bubba got sick and my big girl got sick and then I got sick, and you know, sometimes life just happens, but we are back now, ready to get back to podcasting. So glad that you are here to listen. Today's guest is my beautiful friend, Jaci. And Jaci is a certified transformation and mindset coach who works with game changers, the big-hearted women who are ready to step into their fullest potential, but parts of their past are holding them back from embracing their true self. Enjoy. So could you share your journey with masculine energy and what your current relationship is with masculine energy?
I can. And I love this question because it's not something that I talk to often. So I find it really beautiful. So until probably, I'm going to go with 4 years ago, I didn't even know what feminine energy was. So I remember going to, and I will share this and then I'll go back and share my journey. I remember going to get Reiki done once from someone I'd heard on a podcast. I'm like, oh my God, she sounds awesome. And previously to that, I'd always thought Reiki was just these really fluffy woo-woo people that I wouldn't get along with. Yeah. I heard this podcast. I'm like, oh, I'm going to go and get these. And it was such an interesting experience to the point I got in there and I couldn't breathe properly. And as someone who has grown up playing musical instruments her whole life, like breathing is the one thing that I can do so well. And I was like, what is this? And then she's like, you need to get out of your head. And I was like, what? And she touched my head and just, I had this whole rush of heat and tingles all through my body. And then after that, we started talking about masculine and feminine energy. She's like, you only live in your masculine and not your feminine. And so I started exploring it from there. But previous to that, and I'll sort of come back to this. So I've just always lived in my masculine energy. You know, I've always been very on the go, very to do, very structured, very just hectic, I think, for lack of a better word. You know, I know that for part of it, it was, you know, because of my experiences when I was younger, probably an avoidance strategy to always be on the go and always to be doing things and always to be planning things. And then when I moved to Melbourne, I worked in recruitment. So pretty masculine environment. So again, very on the go, very, you know, sales driven. Then I joined the police force. So I was there for 8 years. And if you're ever going to get a masculine environment, it's the police force. You know, emotions can't come into it. And, you know, if anyone shows any sensitivity, they're weak. You know, and I was just seen as the person that was never impacted by anything, would always get the job done, was just on the ball. And it's just how I lived, right? And then I went through this, I crashed and burned and started my healing journey and started realizing that there was a real sensitivity to me that I'd never acknowledged and I'd never allowed myself to see. And I guess I started to discover who I was, you know, all of these things that, not that I pretended to be who I was previously, but I hid a lot of me. And when I went to this Reiki session, at the end of it, she said, what does feminine energy mean to you? I'm like, I don't know, flower crowns. You know? She was like, it's a little bit more than that. And even the clothes that I wore were very masculine. You know, lots of pants, lots of dark colors, no frills, never ever did frills and only rarely still do frills. And we sort of spoke about it, and she's like, feminine is your body like feeling into what you want to do, as opposed to thinking about what you need to do or ticking off your to-do lists. And I'd started playing with this through meditation, but without actually realizing what it was. And then it was just a matter of, moving through that and playing with, what does feminine energy look like to me, and how can I move away from only living in my masculine energy. And yeah, just looking at, I guess it's really just that level of self-discovery and not avoiding those feelings or what I want to do and what I choose to do, as opposed to what I should be doing.
Mm. Yeah, that's so interesting. I think it's funny because I can't imagine you in the because I know you, like I only know, like I've known you for what, maybe 2 years or
two and a half, I think.
And you always, for me, I think when I think of you, I think of like very feminine and soft. So it's so interesting hearing your journey of how you used to be so in the masculine, because I find it hard to imagine. Yeah. And it's that energy.
I actually love that you say that, because I say to so many people, I'm like, if you had met me 6 years ago, you would not, like, I'm not the same person. You wouldn't recognize me. And, obviously people that have only known me the last couple of years, they're like, really? I'm like, oh yes. But yeah.
But similar to you, I think I probably always had a fair amount of feminine, being in the feminine, but also I can be quite in my head and in the masculine. But I didn't know, like, I never got taught that language. I wasn't familiar with it. And as you were talking about the police force, I was thinking about probably being a social worker, you are like, there's kind of permission to be in that soft feminine energy, and like you care about your clients, and you're mostly around women as a social worker too, like most social workers are females. But I remember working I got a job at the Children's Cancer Centre in the hospital, and I remember it just didn't suit me. I just didn't cope with it at all. And I think it was because there was so much masculine energy, I remember getting told off for being like the bleeding heart social worker, because I cried because something was really sad, and like the doctor looked at me like, who are you? Just like I was this useless social worker. But it just came to me that there was probably that clash of masculine and feminine energy. And sometimes when you're really feminine, certain environments just don't suit you. That just wasn't the right role for me.
And it's interesting because I remember crying once in the police force, and because a kid had been hit by a car, and no one could believe it. They're like, are you crying? Like, you don't show any emotions, like you're just, get shit done type thing. And when I moved on from the police force and I used to work at Monash Uni as an investigation and risk assessment specialist. So again, quite a masculine role. One of the people that I worked with, she'd spoken to someone that knew me, and they're like, oh yeah, she cares about people, she does this. And she's like, oh, I don't want to hug her. And I was like, that is not me. But then as I've journeyed, I'm like, no, I am a hugger.
You are a hugger.
I am a hugger. But I guess, again, as you said, in certain environments, you can't, certain environments need a certain type of energy. And obviously the police force, especially, it was, just very, very masculine. And anyone who I probably would have been similar to that doctor. If someone had have come in, it was like, oh, move on. What are you talking about? Just get over it. Just move on, all of that sort of stuff. So I almost detached, so in my masculine, was detached from, my feminine and my feelings.
It's a survival thing. I saw it in the hospital a lot. It was like, oh no, we don't talk about what's happening here because it's too much. So we have to get on with it. And I guess it's it's a really interesting idea to think about that. I don't know if you've heard about, this idea that maybe social workers could step in and take over some police roles, and that maybe it would be, good. I mean, it'd be really interesting to hear your point of view about that. But maybe sometimes we actually need more of that softness in those.
For sure. So victims get forgotten in the police force. I joined, as cliche as it is, to help people, and you don't help victims. The victims come in, they get forgotten about because it's all about catching crooks. It's all about catching the bad guys, and it's moving away from that. And especially now, and when I was in a role where we dealt with police, you just realize how much they don't care. So 100% they do need that extra element. They need to understand empathy, because it's not taught.
Yeah, it's not taught or encouraged, is it? It's almost seen as a weakness.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah, so interesting. And so what's your current relationship like with masculine energy? And do you kind of like see it like that masculine energy is like really bad or really negative, or?
No, I don't. Short answer. No, so my relationship now, I'd like to think I have a healthy balance. I probably still tend to sometimes lean more to the masculine in that, you know, I can sort of overthink things or get a bit stuck in my head, or, you know, I guess, and still recovering from that perception of to be successful, you need to work hard. You know, so as you know, having a business, it's one of those things where you do initially, like you do have to work hard, but what your version of success is very different from someone else's. And yeah, I'd like to think that I have a healthy balance because I am very in tune with myself, my body, my feelings, what I need, honoring that, like whether it's rest or whether it's self-care or whether it's play, like whatever it is. But also I think, you know, you still need to get shit done.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
I'm all for, you know, feeling and taking care, but at the end of the day, there are still things that need to be done. So it's like, well, that's when you're masculine. That's when my masculine shows up. It's like, okay, we need to do this. So let's get this done. And then, you know, focus on this after that. So I find it a really good balance, but I also find that it's not really like masculine and feminine for me flow together really smoothly now. Like there's no, it's rare that I get to the point where I'm like, oh, okay, like I've been in there for too long. Like I've been too masculine for too long. And I think, you know, when I started playing with feminine energy, which was after this Reiki session, she was like, do things that make you feel feminine. And I know this is not for everybody. Like some people approach it a different way, but for me to actually tune into what feminine energy was, I needed to feel feminine. So I started wearing more skirts. So I started wearing more pinks. So I started just, leaning into what it was to me. I didn't start wearing flower crowns, but what it was to me to be feminine. And when I noticed when I did that, I was much more in my body as opposed to my head. And obviously that's evolved over the years, but it's been one of those journeys where it's like, oh, okay. And I reckon nearly every morning I stop and ask myself, like, what do I need right now? And that allows me to tune in. And then also looking at what do I need to get done, knowing that I'm a mum of a 5.5-month-old at the time of this recording. So things do need to get done. And there's a little human that relies on me, but also honoring that I still have needs, and you know, your intuition comes in so deeply. So yeah, I think it's a really healthy balance because it allows me to take care of myself while also doing what I need to without overexerting myself. And I think that's been one of the biggest lessons over the last couple of years is I don't have to push until burnout.
Yeah.
Like you can spread things out and just play with the flow, knowing that the more you force things, the more it feels off and wrong. And generally for me, if I do something when I'm forcing it, I have to go back and redo it
anyway.
So it's like honoring I just am not in this right now, so do it tomorrow. You know, the world doesn't end. And I think that's where that balance comes in, knowing that I can show up when I need to, but I also honor when I can't, if that makes sense.
And I think it's so interesting how we kind of flow and blend the masculine and the feminine energy. Like one thing, I tend to attract a lot of women who struggle with procrastination, for example. And I have this thing that I say called follow the plan, not the mood, where I say, okay, let's plan out when are you going to do this thing that you're procrastinating on, and then you do it no matter how you're feeling. Which is very like, that's a very masculine thing to do, right? It's kind of like, don't let your feelings affect what you're doing. But the way I use that is I will plan out things that I'm finding really hard or that I tend to avoid, but then I'll leave a lot of white space for the feminine flow in between that. And I almost feel like that masculine structure of planning my week a little bit allows me more feminine energy and space.
100%.
But it's so tricky because I think sometimes people, like, you've got to, the way it works for me might not be the way it works for you.
Yeah.
I've noticed some women just don't like planning their week at all. Like, they find that structure kind of makes them feel really gross.
Yeah.
So it's so interesting.
So interesting. And even before I had Hunter, my son, it was, you know, I still love a to-do list. Right. Love a to-do list. I love structure.
Yeah, me too.
You know, I just like knowing what's going on. And when I had him, I was still trying to be the same. And I'm like, I can't do that. So it is mapping. I still do need some structure. So it's like, okay, what am I doing this week? But knowing that I have that space. So if today doesn't work, you know, if my little human decides that not, you know, you're not doing anything today, then I have that space to move it. But I love what you just spoke about with that procrastination piece. And for me, one of the things that supported me and also my clients is sometimes the things we procrastinate are often either they don't interest us, but they need to be done, or they feel so big and overwhelming that we avoid it. Maybe it's stretchy, maybe it's scary, maybe it's outside our comfort zone. And one thing I used to do was, you know, write down what my main project is for the day, or, you know, what's the main thing I need to do, and what's one small thing I can do towards that. And making that the first thing I do that day. So it's like, then it's done. If I want to go and do more, amazing. But I've done that one thing. So there's that sense of, you know, I can procrastinate about everything else that I need to do, but I've got this one thing done. So that sense of achievement. Without having to without overthinking it, but also still moving things forward. So I love that you said that, because it's sounds very similar to what I do.
Because if I find like it creates that like I call it the snowball effect, a very technology word that it just came to me, but it's like, like sometimes if you're procrastinating or like you're really scared of doing something and it seems so big, if you just do give yourself permission to just do 5 minutes, all of a sudden like the tension's broken and the energy starts moving. And
100%. And how many times have you been like, I know I've done this, it's like, oh, I just need to do this one thing. All right, just sit down, get it done, and then I can go and do anything else. And then 3 hours later, you're like immersed in all this stuff, and you've done so much. You're like, oh shit, like what just happened? And it just do one thing. And again, it is different for everybody. And, you know, some people are, you know, love to do things in the morning, and some people love to do things in the evening. But it's just about like looking at if you, as you said, like if you can give yourself permission to do one thing that's going to make you feel better, what is that thing? And getting that done, and then, you know, the day's yours.
Absolutely. And I guess this is a more feminine question, but like, what do I need right now? Because I know, like, I always share this story where I was procrastinating a lot when my daughter was like maybe 2, and like Fridays was like my day to work on my business, but like Monday to Thursday I was either with her or I was with my counseling clients. And so every Friday I would beat myself up because I was procrastinating in my business, but it was because I was actually really tired, and all I needed to do was like move that day to the Monday and make sure that I had like lots of energy on that day. So sometimes when we procrastinate, it's also because like there is like a more feminine need, right?
100%. As soon as you said that, my day to work on my business was a Friday, I'm like, no.
I know. You can tell that was like my first year in business, and I didn't really know what I was doing, because now I'm like, normally Monday is like, or the first day that I have like where I have some support is like the day that I like try to work on the creative side of my business and put my energy first.
You need the space.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I just needed like a day where my daughter was in daycare where I didn't actually really do much, to be honest, as well. Like
100%.
100%.
I think, you know, it's something that I used to find it funny because a lot of my clients are mums, and I was always like, this is so interesting because I'm not a mum. And then Hunter surprises. I was like, oh, there's my lesson. That's why. But it is, and I think something that's been so obvious to me, or something that's been so front of mind, is that my needs don't have to come last all the time.
Yes.
You know, like I still have needs and they need to be met in order for me to be the best mum, coach, partner, friend, sister, daughter, like best person that I can be.
Yeah.
And while it doesn't look the same, like I can't be selfish and go to the gym 7 days a week and go
Yeah.
get a massage, whatever I want, go do all of these. Like I just honoring those needs. And another question that I love asking myself is, if I'm feeling a certain way, just asking myself why I feel like that.
Yeah.
And often if I journal it, I'll be like, why am I feeling anxious?
Yeah.
Or why am I feeling on edge? And just seeing what comes through.
Yeah.
And that allows me to tap into my feminine, knowing that, you know, depending on what needs to be done that day, I can still lean into the masculine. But it's that piece that was always missing for me. You know, that piece that was never there. You know, my feelings were never something that were considered. You know, every 6 to 8 months I would hit complete burnout, which also led to depression. Like I had cyclical depression for 15 years. And that was just the norm. It was like when I hit that point, I was like, okay, I've hit the hole again. Just lock yourself away for 2 weeks. You're going to be depressed. You're going to be suicidal. You're going to have all of these thoughts, but it'll pass.
Yeah. Because it was like a pattern and you kind of knew how to handle it.
Yeah. Just shut it down. just don't deal with it. And then just go, like get back on that hamster wheel. And that's what I mean. Like that masculine was just, that was just how I lived.
Yeah. Whereas, so that, like, you're providing a really powerful example of how like being in your masculine too much can cause like challenges in life, right? But I've also found like sometimes I'm a very feeling orientated person, and I've had the opposite problem where I'd be like, well, I have to feel really good to be able to do well in my business, which meant like I'd only want to show up if I was feeling really good. And I'm like, no, actually, Sam, you need to show up every day, even if you're not feeling good. Like, so it's really interesting, like, you know, that I think it's important not to see like one as better than the other, isn't it, in all of this?
I think, you know, it's kind of the same as, the way I put it is, when we're in alignment, our head and our heart will say the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, often people are like, what's your head saying and what's your heart saying, or what's your head saying, what's your gut telling you? When you're in alignment, they're saying the same thing. You know, one might be a different version, but ultimately they agree on the outcome. And I think it's the same with masculine and feminine. It's like, okay, this is what I need and this is what I feel and this is what I want to do. All right, let's go do it.
Yeah.
You know, so it's both of them playing together. And I think that's, it doesn't, and again, it's one of those things where depending on who you listen to, some will say, oh no, you have to be in this energy or you have to be in that energy. And I just don't believe that we have to be anything.
No, we absolutely don't. Yeah. Oh, I love this chat. It feels so good.
So fun.
So in terms of like, if there are any listeners who kind of feel like they are really stuck in their masculine energy, what would be like your favorite tips and tools for like overcoming that?
Yeah. So we've already spoken, or we've already said my main one, and that is literally just sit down.
Yeah.
And I say in the morning because it's easier to find that space, right? And because the day doesn't get away with you, because we've all been there, I'll do it later, and you just never do.
Yes.
So, and it can be when you first open your eyes, you know, either sit or lie down, shut your eyes, take a few deep breaths, and just ask yourself what you need.
Yeah.
Like, what do I need right now? And see what comes up. And initially you might feel like a bit of a fool if, you know, if you've never asked yourself that question, but just allowing yourself to tune into how your body feels.
Yeah.
And I think the easiest way to do that is to take little pauses throughout the day. You know, if you know, if we're going to go to extremes, like go to a forest or a bush or the wilderness or the ocean or something and just sit there in complete silence and then really tune in.
Yeah.
But if you're in your masculine, that's not going to be something, like solely in your masculine, that's not going to be something that you're even entertaining. But take some moments, you know, if you work in corporate or even if you have your own business, like take 10 minutes and go and sit outside in the sun at lunchtime and just take a couple of breaths and shut your eyes.
Yeah.
Just be still and see what you need, and just find those pockets of peace, because it's in those moments that you're allowing yourself to lean into your feelings. So that's probably my biggest one, and the easiest one is just ask yourself, like, what do I need right now? And and I laugh because this is probably me previously. If you're like, I don't know, I've got too many things to do to think about what I need.
Yeah.
If that's you, do a brain dump. Like, grab out a pen and a scrap piece of paper and just write down everything going through your head to clear some space. Like, because unless you get that release, unless you're able to get all of those thoughts out of your head, you're never going to be able to lean in. And ultimately, sometimes we do it as a distraction, or, as you said, a coping mechanism to just be busy. And sometimes we're scared of that silence. But once you become comfortable with it, there's so much magic in there.
Yeah. And what I was thinking is that this reminds me a little bit of when I was working with one of my therapists gave me some journaling prompts, and it was, it was asking yourself, what do I need? But before that, it was like reminding yourself that I matter, like that I'm here and I matter. And what was coming up for me as you were sharing was like, I wonder what it is that stops women from asking themselves that question, like automatically, and why it isn't something that we aren't all kind of taught to ask ourselves. I don't know. Do you feel like sometimes what's underneath that is maybe like a belief that we're not important or that we don't matter?
100%.
Yeah.
So everyone who does True Self Experience, my 6-month program, get a daily journal prompt.
Yeah.
And the title of that prompt is I am worthy.
Yeah.
Because so many women don't believe that they're worthy.
Yes.
And I think societal conditioning, pressure, generational, programming, all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I do, and we're going to be very general here. Like, generally, women, we put ourselves last.
Yes.
Once everybody else is okay, then I'll worry about me. And that just never happens.
Yes.
And I think when I first started journaling, and I probably didn't realize how much this would support me, but when I first started journaling, I actually created my own journals. And on one page, it was, 5 quick questions. And the first one was, how do I feel today? And like sort of a scale.
Yeah.
Why do I feel like that? And how can I shift my mood?
Yeah.
And to me, I was like, okay, cool. Like, I'm getting this done.
Yeah.
My masculine, I'm getting it done. Cool. This is good. But now that I look back at it, that we're having this conversation, I'm like, that's me leaning into my feminine before I even knew what it was, in a way of like, how do I feel? And honoring that. And as you said, like, changing that belief that we matter, changing that belief that our needs are important, because they are.
Yeah.
We can't show up for anyone else if our cup's empty.
Yeah. And like, our needs just matter. Like, what's interesting for me as a business owner is like, so often we have to use marketing to convince women that their needs matter for some other reason. So like, your needs matter so that you're a good mom, or so that you can grow your business. But what if it was just your needs matter and you're important, full stop, like that we didn't even really need to justify why they do?
Yeah. And I think, obviously, I'm a business owner as well, and I understand that, but the women that I work with are not all, some are, but a lot aren't. And it's beautiful looking at that, because, and again, mums, like, our needs matter, but, after all of this, and it's like, no, they just matter, whether you're a mum or whether you're not a mum. And again, sometimes there's that societal pressure of, if I'm not a mum, I need to be this, or I need to be that, and I need to be that, and then I can worry about me. And I'm not here for it. Like, because you imagine how different everybody, and if you're listening, imagine how different all of your relationships would be if you believed that you matter and the people around you believe that they matter. Like, imagine the conversations that you have. Imagine the support that's there. Imagine just how juicy is the word that's coming
Yeah.
up, like juicy and nurturing your relationships would be, because you're coming from a place of love and acceptance, and like there's a purity to it when we know that we matter, because we're not trying to prove anything, we're not trying to compete with anyone, we're not trying to shut anyone down, we're not hiding, we're just being ourselves, knowing that that is enough and we matter.
Yeah, the energy shift is huge. Like for me, when you say that, it's just, yeah, incredible.
Yeah. And because we all have those people around us that we know maybe don't think that they do. And then, you know, the things that we say to them are often not the things that we say to ourselves.
Yeah.
So, you know, like that best friend conversation, how can you be your own best friend and have that conversation? And as someone who never showed up as her true self, who never, you know, I was very controlled in what I would say and the opinions that I would share, and, you know, would say things or whatever to fit in. As someone who's come from that place, like I can't tell you how liberating it is to get to the point where you're like, this is me, and I know that I'm not everyone's cup of tea, and that's okay. Because the people that are in my life are fucking amazing. I hope I can swear. Sorry.
You can swear. Totally swear. My 6-year-old's not listening, so I'm pretty sure.
But it is. It's just one of those things where it's like, I think about it now and I just feel so content knowing that I can show up messy. I can have a different opinion.
Yeah.
I can feel a different way. I can have different views. And that matters. And it also makes the conversations with my people so much better, because you actually have different opinions and you can have those opinions and have those discussions without arguing. So it's like, cool, like gives us something to talk about. Whereas when we feel like we need to hide, it's, you know, I don't know. We sort of shut ourselves down when we live too much from that place. And again, too much in our masculine of worrying what people think, showing up a certain way, being a certain way.
Yes. Well, I've just been interviewing Marie on the patriarchy as well, and I was thinking about how the masculine energy
fired up.
It's very interesting timing, but it's like that masculine energy, like that just fuels the patriarchy, doesn't it? Because it's 100%. Like, be perfect, don't make any mistakes. Like, you know, even as I'm thinking about it, I can feel my body like physically tensing up. Whereas if we lead from that feminine energy, it's completely different.
I actually saw a post. Well, someone shared it. It was on LinkedIn the other day, and it was a male, and he said, what makes great women leaders? First problem I have with this is it's a male commenting on what makes great women leaders. But secondly, it was like, I'm going to butcher this, but it was something like, you know, they're humble and don't brag about what they've done. They get the job done and don't ask for a raise. They don't feel the need to say what they think in meetings. Like, it was just like,
was he being sarcastic? Like, I can't imagine any male getting away with posting that in this day and age.
It was just like, are you kidding me? Is this? And apparently, like everyone just went to town, so we deleted the post. But it was just this whole thing of, you know, they get the job done and they don't ask for a raise and they go above and beyond because they want to do a good job. And we're like, I was just like, no, they do that because they have to.
Yeah, because you're putting them in that position where they don't feel like they have a choice. Yeah. Oh, yes. I don't go on LinkedIn a lot. I've been thinking about, having more of a presence on there, but I do feel like LinkedIn has more of that masculine energy in the way it.
It's corporate based, you know, and I sort of play with it every now and again. I'm like, I'm going to go back in here. And then I'm like, no, I'm not.
I feel you. Pretty
That's
sure my business coach told me I should be in LinkedIn, and I had like a physical reaction like, I don't know about that.
It's interesting.
It's very interesting. Well, thank you so much for sharing your journey and your wisdom with us. I feel like I could chat with you for days. But if like, I'm sure that everyone listening is going to want to like really connect with you and keep in touch, what is the best way for people to follow you and stay connected?
Yeah, the best way is over on Instagram,
Yeah.
and it's just Jaci.Rogash. I do have a free Facebook group, or I've got a podcast, Your True Self, if you want to listen into that as well. But you'll find me mostly over on Instagram.
Yes, thank you so much, Jackie. And hopefully I'm going to be on your podcast soon. And
you absolutely will be.
But we haven't actually planned it yet, but it will happen.
You will. Once you're free, I'm there.
Thanks, lovely.
You're so welcome. Thank you.